link.
Olá, senhores, passando para desejar boa sorte aí nesse webinar.
Fala, seu João.
Prazer em vê-los todos. E não vê-los, na verdade, que está a webcam desligada, mas sei que estamos todos juntos.
Obrigado.
Tá ao vivo, admitiu o Carlos. Estou devolvendo para o Felipe o host. Estou colando aqui no Zoom para vocês. Chat. Esse é o link do YouTube. Vou te mandar também, Cristiano, no WhatsApp. Já tá lá daí.
Valeu, meu querido. Se der algum
Imagina,
aí,
cara. Tá, me chama. Fica à vontade. Pode me chamar daí.
Se der algum chabu aí, nós te liga.
Tá bom. Valeu. Abração. Boa reunião aí.
Tchau.
Valeu.
Ô, Felipe, joga eu como host de novo, por favor.
Sim. Feito.
Obrigado.
Essa Fran.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start in 1 minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you, especially with our keynote speaker as well. Good afternoon to all of you for attending this webinar with our special guest as our keynote speaker for our online conference this year. So allow me to introduce you guys about the agenda for today will be here like this. Okay, so the agenda for today will be we're going to have a special session with our keynote speaker, and then this is the only keynote speaker that we have for these sessions, and then later on we will follow with the event feedback on how we actually organize the event, and last but not least we have a photo sessions. It's going to be a quick one, but trust me, the value for this webinar is tremendous. So I have attended personally the workshop from Craig Valentine. It was so impressive and then really really valuable. So I really urge you guys to pay attention on this kind of webinar. And then allow me to do also mention about our committee of the team, which I have the Felipe Gil and Cristiano Monegato to help me in the sense of organizing this event, including Matheus Silveira just now to help me about to make it broadcast as well. And special mention to our translator, Arthur Dias, a professional translator, which we have the other channels in the Portuguese channel. So Craig, don't worry, your content will be also bilingual because they will also cater with our Portuguese speakers as the rest of the Brazilians. So we have another channel where Arthur is the host, and he's going to translate the content to the Portuguese one simultaneously. Thank you for Arthur for helping that. And allow me to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So our keynote speaker, he is an MBA holder and award-winning speaker and trainer, has traveled around the world helping thousands of individuals and hundreds of organizations reap the profitable rewards that come from presenting with impact and persuading with ease. As a motivational speaker, he has spoken in the United States, Taiwan, Canada, Jamaica, Qatar, England, Bahamas, Hong Kong, China. Keep mentioning around Indonesia, Japan, South Africa, but not yet for Brazil. But soon he's going to speak around in Brazil one day. It will be as giving as many as 160 presentations per year. You can imagine the 160 presentations per year. He's the 1999 world champions of public speaking for Toastmasters International. Craig, our speaker is the president of the Communication Factory, which is an award-winning company that helps organizations profit by presenting with impact and persuading with ease. Our keynote speaker is also the co-founder of the World Speaking Program, a world-class speaking program which help up and coming speakers and speech coaches turn their presentations and programs into huge profits. Our speaker is the author of a groundbreaking book, The Nuts and the Bolts of Public Speaking, co-author of the books World-Class Speaking and World-Class Speaking in Action. Oh, they got two books there. And contributing author for the books Guerrilla Marketing on the Front Lines, Success Secrets of the Social Media Marketing Superstars, and Guerrilla Marketing Remix. Please put your hands together for our keynote speaker today, Mr. Craig Valentine. Thank you so much, Craig. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'm glad you clapped for me because believe it or not, some Toastmasters don't like me. You know why? Because I joined Toastmasters in March of 1998. Got my CTM in March of 1999 and won the world championship in August of 1999 in my very first try, right? Now I can tell you're impressed, but can you feel the haters on the call, right? Because people come up to me all the time. They say, Craig, you don't even know what it feels like to lose a contest. Yes, I do. I lost the humorous speech contest at the club level. You're laughing at my misery. But I'll never forget a seasoned Toastmaster named Alan Mish came up to me afterwards and he said, Craig, you can win the world championship of public speaking. I said, what are you talking about? I just lost the humorous speech contest at the club level. He said, that's all right. He said, the only thing wrong with your humorous speech was that it wasn't funny. Raise your hand if you've ever given a speech you wish you could take back. Yeah, I promise you that will happen much less often after today, because you're about to pick up some tools you can use to keep your audience on the edge of their seats and make them glad they came. Now, first thing we're going to do is look at how you can craft your message, then how to deliver your message, and then how to sell your message so people take the exact next step you want them to take. So let's first look at how to craft your message. But before we do that, you tell a story and make a point. Take a listen here.
Sorry, Craig. The audio, it's a bit low. I received comments from others. They can hear you for the audio.
Ah, okay. Let's try that again. Sorry about that. Thought I had put the audio on. I'm gonna go back.
All right.
Being the world champion is a blessing and a curse. Oh, you said it. If you had been walking towards me in the Chicago airport 2 days after I won the world championship, you would have seen my wife on one side of me and me carrying this gigantic crystal trophy, just walking through the Chicago airport. And of course, everybody's looking at me like, who is that? Is that, honey, is that Denzel Washington? You didn't have to laugh that hard. But this is when I realized my life would never be the same. This petite lady in a pink dress runs up to me in the middle of the concourse and starts reading the bottom of my trophy. And she says, 1999 world champion of public speaking. Huh. Say some things. And I was speechless. And that's when I realized no matter where I go in life, people are going to say, would you mind saying some things? So I came to a fundamental understanding about my life as a speaker, and really about yours too. When it comes to speaking, I can no longer get ready to speak. I have to stay ready to speak. And my new motto is don't get ready, stay ready. Now stop right there. You tell a story, make a point. What's the point of that story? Don't get ready, stay ready. People are going to remember it. They're going to repeat it. Okay, give you another example. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? What do you think that is? Most people will say it's a lack of time, or it's fear, or lack of money. That's not it. The number one thing is not what you think. See, I used to work for an internet company, and I wanted to go full-time into professional speaking. That was my goal. That was my dream. Raise your hand if you have a goal, or raise your hand if you want to do anything in life. Me too. So I went to the vice president of this company. He was a young guy, good looking guy. He looked like a young David Beckham. And I said, look, John, I'm going to be leaving because it's always been my dream to be a full-time professional speaker. He said, that's your dream, Craig? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, that's great. I admire you for having one, but you can't leave. I said, hold on, what do you mean I can't leave? He said, well, we've been thinking about it, and we're going to raise your salary up to this. Now, salary means the same thing where you're from, right? And you see my dilemma. I said, John, this is not a financial decision. This is about my dream. I'd call this a dream decision. He said, okay, I understand. I really do. But how about if we raise your salary up to this? I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. Do you know he raised it 4 times? I kid you not. He kept saying, we're going to raise your salary to this. I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. Take a look at what he said. He said, okay, Craig, how about if we raise your salary to well above 6 figures? I said, dreams are overrated. Come on now. 6 figures. Back then, shoot, that's good money today. I could fill up my gas tank for a week on that kind of salary. I said, but John, before I say yes to you, I got to go home and talk to my wife. So I went home to my wife. I said, honey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? What should I do? And my wife looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, take the money, fool. Yeah, you like my wife, don't you? But if you've been sitting beside my wife and me just a few moments later on our old beat up black leather sofa with the chocolate chip cookies baking in the background, you would have heard her say something that can absolutely change your life. And I know it because it changed mine. She said, Craig, this is all you've ever talked about. This is everything, ever since we met, this is all you've ever wanted. I don't care how much they try to compensate you. Your dream is not for sale. That's deep, isn't it? Because most people think the number one thing that stands between them and their dreams is some kind of bad obstacle, lack of time, lack of energy. That's not it. The number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams is not something bad, it's something good. that we settle for, right? Good job, good relationship, a good life. Did you realize that sometimes the enemy of the best is the good? So let me ask you something. When it comes to your life, when it comes to your speaking, when it comes to your leading, are you too good to be great? I looked at my wife, I said, see, girl, that's why I married you. My dream is not for sale. That's what you said, right? And I walked back in there the next day and I looked at Vice President in his eyes and I was firm. I looked him directly in his face and I was bold. And I said to him, my wife said my dream is not for sale. And I left. And that very year, I spoke over 160 times in 44 states and 5 countries. And I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since, right? There's nothing special about me. There's something very special about the advice my wife gave me. No matter how good you are at what you do, don't let that good get in the way of the best. And no matter where you are in your life at this time, don't forget the words of my wife. Your dream is not for sale. Your dream is not for sale. Now, tell a story, make a point. What's the point of that story? Your dream is not for sale. I gave that story in Mysore, India. Mysore, India. And the next day, I was in the hotel and they slid a newspaper under my door. And I picked it up and there was a big picture of me on the front. And the headline read, your dream is definitely not for sale. Okay, it's going to be remembered, it's going to be repeated. So it's extremely important to understand you need to tell a story and make a point. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a story that was all over the place? Have you ever given one? Yeah, me too. And it's because the speaker doesn't start creating his story in the right place. One of the first things we need to do when we start to craft our message is come up with what I call a foundational phrase. Now, what's that? Don't get ready, stay ready. What's the foundational phrase? Your dream is not for sale. What's the foundational phrase of another story I tell? What got you here won't get you there. What do you notice about those phrases? Yeah, they're short. Write this down. Your foundational phrase should be fewer than 10 words. Why? You're probably saying because it's memorable, right? But here's the real reason why it should be fewer than 10 words. Because it forces you to be crystal clear on what your message is. Make no mistake about it. The number one reason a speaker won't get his message across is because he's not crystal clear on what his message is. Fewer than 10 words forces you to be crystal clear. Now write this down. Have you ever wondered what to keep in your story and what to keep out? Yeah, write this down. The phrase determines what stays. The phrase determines what stays. If what you say supports your foundational phrase, keep it in. If it doesn't, toss it out, even if it's good. Now write this down and tell me what it means. No phrase, no stage. What does that mean? No phrase, no stage. That means if you don't have a foundational phrase for your story, don't take it to the stage yet because it's not ready. So the question is, well, where do I take it? The answer is take it to Toastmasters. They will give you a foundational phrase. They'll tell you some other things too, but they'll give you a foundational phrase. I'll give you an example. I had a story I wanted to tell, but I couldn't tell it because I didn't have a point. So I took it to Toastmasters. Look what happened. Here's an example. You ever gone to a drive-through restaurant, placed your order and been misunderstood? I can't mention the name of this restaurant, but its initials are K, F, and C. So imagine this, you're in my passenger seat, we're driving through the KFC, and I always order 3 thighs. That's the only part of the chicken I like. So we get up to the intercom, and she says, welcome to KFC, may I help you? I said, yes, I would like 3 thighs. She said, small or large? And before I could even register it, I just blurted out, do you have large thighs? Yeah, I'm gonna recommend that you never ask anyone that. And she came back and says, yes, we have small and large sides. How may I help you? But by now I'm just rolling over in embarrassment. And I went to a friend of mine that night and I called a friend of mine that night. He said, Craig, what you say is not always what they hear. Boom. Guess what I have now? A foundational phrase I can use for every leadership and communication speech I give moving forward. So it's important to tell a story, make a point, foundational phrase, fewer than 10 words. But really what I'm saying here is, how do you come up with your foundational phrase? Share your story with your friends. Share your story at the dinner table with your family. Take it to Toastmasters, see what they get from it. In fact, we're going to prove that right now. We're going to play a game. And the game is called Find the Phrase. And here's how it works. You're going to watch a quick story from me. And then within 30 seconds, you're going to come up with the best foundational phrase you can, fewer than 10 words. And normally when I do this in person, people are partnering up and they're always looking at me like, I need to switch partners because there's a prize in it for you. Right now, I'm in the middle of a 6-week legendary storytelling course, which is $394. Whoever gets the best foundational phrase gets access to that entire course for life. Okay, my life. All right, so if you don't play, you can't win. So here's the story. Your job is to come up with the foundational phrase. 1997, I'm flying back from Los Angeles to Baltimore. It's a 5-hour flight. I sit down on the flight, guy sits down next to me. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy looks kind of like me, just a slightly older version. I wonder what he does in life. Now, if you fly a lot, you'll appreciate this. The first 4.5 hours of the flight, we say absolutely nothing to each other. The last half hour of the flight, he turns to me and he says, how you doing? I said, I'm fine. You know, I've actually been here the whole time. He said, I'm sorry I didn't talk to you earlier, but I didn't want to talk to you and then find out you were boring and then be stuck talking to a boring person for 5 hours. You understand? And oddly enough, I did understand because I'm kind of the same way. But how do people start a conversation with you on a flight? What are some of the things they say? Where are you from? What do you do? Where are you going? I'm like, where are you going? Hopefully we're going to the same place, right? Drop me off over Brazil. No, he didn't say any of that. In fact, it felt like he was looking through me. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, right now I'm an events planner. Eventually, I'd like to be a professional speaker. I said, why? What do you do? He said, I'm a professional speaker. I said, you are? He says, yes, as a matter of fact, I am the #1 gospel comedian in the United States of America. I said, man, I didn't even know there was such thing as a gospel comedian. He said, that's why I'm #1. Now, there's more to that story, but you don't need it. With what you got right there, you can come up with the best foundational phrase, fewer than 10 words. So I'm going to look at everybody here, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to come up with it, even give you a little bit of music that you can use to soothe yourself as you go through it. Example. Written by my son. Here we go. All right, we're on Zoom. I can't give you a full 30 seconds. That's just way too long. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to look out and I'm going to see, raise your hand if you feel like you have a foundational phrase that you can use, or just unmute yourself, or you can even chat the foundational phrase in. I'm going to go with Carlos. Carlos, go ahead and unmute yourself. Now, this is very important because I'm hearing noise in the background. Everybody else, please stay muted. I'm hearing people walk to the kitchen and doing this and doing that. I really need to make sure that the line stays clean. So let me go with Carlos. Carlos, what do you think?
Maybe it pays to be the biggest fish in a small pond.
It pays to be the biggest fish in a small pond. And then look at your screenshot. It's a big fish in a small pond. That's amazing. Good. I like that one. Let me have another one. Anybody have one? Feel free to call out. You never know when you'll meet your future. Ooh, Arthur Dias. You never know when you'll meet your future. Well, we can go in a lot of ways with that one. Remember, if you don't play, you can't win. Let me hear somebody else if they have one. Oh, future is closer than you think from Arthur Dias. Okay, good. You got a few of them. I'll take a couple more and then we'll crown a winner here. All right. Okay, going once, going twice. It pays to take the initiative from Maria Martin. Okay, one more. All right. An accidental look into the future mirror. Good. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. Ooh, there are opportunities if you take action. Live your life with meaning. Now remember, you want it to be something that people remember you for. When they say your dream is not for sale, they remember me, Craig Valentine. So it needs to be something that is Craig-ized or Maria-ized. You missed the opportunity, don't you? It came up and went so quick, I couldn't even see who that was. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna give it to Alessandra. Alessandro, you win. So can you unmute yourself, Alessandro, and tell us what your foundational phrase was?
Hello, Greg.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, tell me what your foundational
Thank you
phrase
so
was.
much. That I was thinking about that phrase and trying to not go straight to a small something, but the idea was that don't let a room without a window keep your mind without light, because you need to look beyond, look away beyond what our eyes can see.
Okay, very good. So can you summarize that into 10 words?
Don't let a room without windows keep your mind without light.
All right. I like that. So what I would do is I'd get to the end of my story. I'd say my funny line. Okay, that's why I'm number one. They would laugh. I would wait for the laughter to leave, and I'd step up and I'd say, don't go into a room without windows or without light or whatever it is that you said. Okay, thank you, Alexandra. I'll make sure the coordinators get you the course and you have access to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everybody else, please mute yourself, please. Good, thank you, Alessandra. Okay, so tell a story, make a point, foundational phrase. Now, you have some ideas on how to craft your message. I need a volunteer to work with me on how to deliver your message, okay? Preferably somebody I can see. Okay, let me go with Raphael. Raphael, okay? Yeah, you can, okay. Where are you? There you go. Can you unmute yourself? How you doing?
Hello, Greg.
Good.
I'm finding you.
I'm doing well. Listen, here's what I want to do. I had a speech this morning to the Middle East to 800 people, right? I want you to pretend that you're in person in front of 800 people and you're the speaker, and I want you to find out how many of them have ever been to the United States. So what would you say if you're the speaker and you wanted to find that out?
I would be in the middle of the speech, and I would say, have you ever been to America? Please raise your hand. I'd say something like that.
Good. Yeah. Let me stop you before you go into your own keynote speech. That was fantastic. That was really good. But you know what most people do, Raphael? They say, how many of you have ever been to the United States? How many of you have done this and that? So how would you like a tool you can use to make a deeper connection with your audience than you've ever felt before? If so, just say yes. Yes? All right. This is a slight edge principle, which means it's a slight change in the way you do things. But if you do it throughout your entire presentation, what a difference for how they'll feel your message and not just hear it. So Raphael, stay with me, Raphael. When your audience members leave your speech, hopefully at the end, do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, I really felt like I was part of a group? Or do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, I really felt like Raphael was speaking directly to me? Which one do you want, A or B? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I prefer B.
Good. And how many people did you just speak to? How many people, let me say this. How many people do most speakers speak to? Everybody.
Can you repeat the question?
Everybody. How many people did you just speak to? One, right? Good. So how can we rephrase their questions to make it sound and feel grammatically like they're speaking to one rather than 40 or rather than 800? Have you been to the United States? Can you imagine, should you, would you, could you, singular grammatically? You got it right, but write this down because it will change your public speaking life. Speak to one, but look to all. Speak to one, but look to all, right? There are far too many speakers speaking to far too many people far too often. And Raphael, you'll hear them because they'll say things like, ladies and gentlemen, and friends, and folks, and boys and girls, and societal members, and members of the committee, and this and that. You might as well be saying, friends, Romans, countrymen. Stop. Speak to one. Now, Raphael, you ever heard a speaker say, now some of you might be thinking? Well, guess what? There is no some of you. Now, you might be thinking. Feel the difference? You ever heard a speaker say, now many of you probably came to the conclusion. Guess what? There is no many of you. Now, in case you've come to the conclusion. So Raphael, I'm gonna give you a lesson. This is a lesson that you got it right, but most people need to understand. And if you can use this test, you're gonna be much better off as a speaker. Here's the test right here. Speak to one, but look to all. Now I'm gonna give you a test. This is something that you can do to make sure that you're speaking to one, but looking to all. It's what I call the hallway test.
So Heather and I, here's how it goes. If you can walk by one person in the hallway and you can say it, then you can take it up on stage. So Heather and I, we're gonna just walk by each other in the hallway and just see what happens. How many of you have ever been to Baltimore? Unless she's civil, we got a problem. Now, watch this. We're gonna walk by each other again. Let's see what happens. Have you ever been to Baltimore?
Yeah, I used to live there.
How happy to grace. Now, you see the difference? If I can say it there, I can take it up on stage.
All right, you got it. Now, Raphael, you got it right the first time, but I want you to go ahead and speak to one, but look to all. And remember, you're in front of 800 people, so I want you to speak to one grammatically, but I want you to look to all. Okay, so what would you say? And how would you say it? Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go. Remember, you're in front of 800 people.
Okay. I'm from 800 people, and I'm delivering my speech, and I say, "Hey, you. Have you ever been to America?" And maybe look for something like that. Just a direct question.
That's right. As you say it, make sure you're looking at everybody. So raise your hand if you've ever been to the America. Or have you ever been to America? Because what a lot of speakers end up doing is when I teach them this, they decide to speak to one and look to one. And they go up to one audience member and say, "You ever been to America? Huh? You ever been to Baltimore? How about you? You ever been to Baltimore?" And that's just not going to get it. It's going to take you too long to get through your audience. So make sure you speak to one, but look to all. Raphael, I got a prize for you. I'll make sure that you get it by the end of this, by the end of the call. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you, Craig.
I appreciate you. All right. Now, the other thing I want to say about delivery is this. We got to start mimicking correctly. I've got people who are on, you know, they're on stage and they're saying things like, last week I was on the telephone, and I'm like, what telephone was shaped like this last week? Okay, that's not a phone. Let's mimic correctly. Here's what you do. You put your phone up to your ear, you take it off, boom, there's your phone. I was giving a workshop with my buddy Darren LaCroix one day, and one of our speakers got up on stage and said, "I was driving around the other day." And Darren said, were you driving the space shuttle? Like, what were you driving that had to be like? So you got to mimic correctly. I remember being in Guangzhou, China, and there was a lady giving her speech, and this is exactly what she did. She said, "I went to my 4-year-old daughter and I said, 'Honey.' And I'm in China, so I was like, 'Is your daughter Yao Ming? Like, why is she way up there?'" So we've got to make sure that we mimic correctly. But here's what you really need to understand about delivery. It's not about the lines. It's about the spaces and faces in between the lines that make the difference. Okay, so when you listen to this story, really realize, look for the spaces and places in between the lines. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a speech contest. All right. When I won at the club level and one at the area level, I'm going to the division level. We're going to hold the conference in Baltimore City. And so I get to at the Red Cross building. So I get to the Red Cross building. I go to the elevator. I'm going to go from the first floor to the third floor. As soon as I got on the elevator, a guy gets on next to me. And as soon as he looked like he could be a minister or a preacher or something like that. And the moment he saw me, he said, "You're in the contest, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." And without saying anything else, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a bottle of oil, unscrewed it, dipped his finger in it, and started walking towards me. And then dabbed me in the forehead. And before I could say anything, he just looked at me and he said, "I've just anointed you." I said, "What?" He said, "You don't understand. I'm a man of faith. What I just did was very important. I've just anointed you. You're going to be the one who makes it." Now, I got to be honest. I had no idea what was going on. And plus, I'm black. So I was like, am I ashy? Like, what's happening here? Why does he keep doing? And he just kept saying, "I've anointed you. I've anointed you. I've anointed you." Thankfully, the third floor came. And I hopped off that elevator as fast as I could. And I got into the contest. Everybody's speaking. And then it's my turn. And I'm in my contest speech. I'm flowing. I'm going. And in the middle of my contest speech, my mind goes blank. Now, keep in mind, this is a contest. Like, if my mind went blank today, I could easily say to you, "Where were we?" You can't do that in a contest. And so I didn't know what to do. And I just gave up and just started looking around the room. And then my eyes latched onto his. And at that exact moment, everything came rushing back. And I picked up where I left off. Now, here's the interesting thing about where I lost my memory. I was supposed to pause. Yeah, I don't know if I was supposed to pause that long, but I was supposed to pause. So I picked up where I left off. I finished the speech. The contest is over, and the contest master comes up and says, and the winner of today's division contest is Craig Valentine. And all these people rushed the stage. And guess what the first thing they said to me was? They're like, man, the reason you won, that pause. Oh my goodness, that pause. What an amazing pause, that pause. And all I could think was, well, you know, I am anointed. Now, he never claimed me. You know, there are people who say, I helped Craig Valentine win the world championship. No, they didn't. This guy actually helped me, but he never claimed me. In fact, to be honest, I've never seen him again in my life. He just came into my life, lifted it, and left. Isn't it appropriate that we met in an elevator? Because he met me at one level and left me at another. Now, let me stop you right there. We're telling our story, but where did that story live? Where did it breathe? Where did it come to life? It was this. 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 It was that. It wasn't the lines, it's the faces and spaces, the spaces and faces that you make in between the lines. So always ask yourself, what can I do in between these lines to really make this story breathe, to bring the heart out of the story? Because most speakers just write down lines, and it's not about the lines, it's about the spaces. So always ask, what are the looks before and after the line that I can give? Okay, extremely, extremely important. All right, so you have some ideas on how to craft your message. You have some ideas on how to deliver your message. Let's look at how to sell your message so people take the exact next step you want them to take. All right, here's a quick cartoon on how you can sell your message. And yes, this is me.
Never sell a product, always sell what? The result. Years ago, I went to buy my first car ever in life. And I went to the dealership, and the salesperson came up to me and he said, are you looking at that car? I said, yes, sir. He said, good, good. Let me tell you about it. This car has these types of brakes, this type of engine, this type of power, this type of window. What's he trying to sell me? The car. I just said, never sell a product, always sell what? The result. So I said, thank you, but no thank you, I'm not interested. I went to a different dealership, same day, different salesperson, same car. Now, I gotta be honest, he must have anticipated where I was in my life at that time. You know, young and single and looking to mingle. And feel free to use that one. And he came up to me and he said, are you looking at that car? I said, yes, sir. He said, ooh, you're gonna look good in that one. Yeah, man, you're gonna be flying down the road, the wind's gonna be blowing through your hair, and the girls, let me tell you, the girls will be all over you. What do you think I did? I said, where do I sign? He made the sale not because he sold me the car, but he sold me what? The result, and he lied. Oh, I'm lonely as I could be in that car. Just me and my payment.
All right, never sell a product, always sell the result. Raise your hand if a year from now you'd like to be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Good, thank you, Andre. Then for absolutely free, for no fee, you can go to one of my websites, which is 52speakingtips.com. That's 52speakingtips.com. And every week for a year, you're going to get an audio lesson from me. And by the end of that year, you will be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Now stop right there. What was the result? 3 times better. What was the resource? The website, 52 Speaking Tips. Which one did I mention first? I think Lee said free. No, no, it's not free. Yeah, it is free, but it's the result. So this is the addition to that formula. Never sell a product, always sell the result. Always put the result before the resource. In leadership, always state the result before the request. Because if I did it the other way around, the way most speakers do, the way most people do, it would have sounded like this. Raise your hand if you'd like to receive 52 emails from me. I don't think my opt-in rate would be as high. So tell a story, make a point, foundational, and do all these things, but make sure when you get to selling your message, never sell a product, always sell the result, always put the result before the resource. Now, here's something that's very important to understand about selling your message and getting people to take your next step. 90% of speakers get this wrong. Never, ever, 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 ever close your speech with the Q&A. Never close your speech with the Q&A. Why? I'll tell you why, because people remember best what they hear first and what they hear last. You got to be the last thing in their ears. So have a Q&A, which we're about to have in a second, but don't close your speech with the Q&A. Plus, be honest, can't some people ask some crazy questions? The best 2-day management seminar I ever gave in my life, I ruined it at the end because I asked the wrong question. I asked, are there any questions? And I'll never forget, a petite lady in the front row looked up and said, yes, I love the reinforcement techniques you gave us to reinforce the behaviors of our employees. I'm just wondering, do you think these same reinforcement techniques will work with my horses? I remember a guy in the back stood up and said, nay. So have a Q&A, but don't close with it. Don't make it the last thing that you do. Okay? So we're going to do that right now. We're going to have a Q&A if you have any questions, and then I'm going to wrap up in my own way. Any questions about crafting your message, about delivering your message, or about selling your message so people take the exact next step?
Dadalva.
Feel free to ask.
Vem cá para você ver a casa dele. A gente vê a casa de todo mundo nessa.
Okay, that I don't know what that question was. But
sorry for that.
Feel free, no problem. Feel free to ask it if you want to write it or you want to chat it, or if you just want to raise your hand and ask it, go ahead, feel free. And if we don't have any, I'll just keep going. I'm gonna go with Joao.
Better to say Joao. That's me.
Joao. Okay, Joao, how are you?
I'm feeling even greater now with your awesome speech,
Good.
Craig.
Oh, thank you very much.
My question is, you mentioned a lot about body language, about vocal variety to add value to your speech, but in your point of view, which would be the balance between the speech itself and the body language for the one do not surpass, do not exaggerate the other?
Yeah, I think the best advice I got on that was from Dale Carnegie, who said, be under the influence of your own emotions as you go through your speech. So whenever I'm going back to these stories, I'm going back to the emotion in the stories. Like when I'm in the elevator and the guy puts the oil on my head, I'm going back to that confusion, right? I'm going back to that look, to that feel, to what actually happened. All right, now, every now and then you can exaggerate for humor, but I think it's really important just to do it as naturally and as accurately as I talked about before, okay? For example, there are some people when they do children's voices, they'll make the voices go up and say something like, hey, I wouldn't do any of that because you want it to be subtle and you can do more with the expression of becoming that child. So for example, when they had the 2012 Olympics, the oldest participant in the Olympics was a 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. And my 7-year-old son and I were watching this on television, and unfortunately, all the commentators kept harping on was the guy's age, right? They just kept saying, he's 74. Can you believe he's 74? By golly, he's 74. Finally, my 7-year-old son looked up and said, well, how old is the horse? Boom. You see that? I changed my voice just a little bit, but I looked up, took on his expression, and became that character. And then I'll go right back to being with my audience and having a conversation. Okay? So I think that's a great question. Thank you for that. Have another question? Anybody?
We have one question on the chat by Andre Hayes. He asked.
I know Andre.
Yeah. So you had a blank during a speech. Nowadays, do you have any pointers on how to remember your message / points?
If I have a blank, if I go blank,
yes.
Yeah, I would do exactly what I just said, Andre. We're human. It's not about perfection. It's about connection. So if I drew a blank today, I would probably look at somebody in my audience and say, well, where were we? Where were we? What was I talking about? Right? And hopefully they'll know because they were listening. Okay. But what I do is I like to rehearse my speeches so much that I'm not necessarily going to have a blank. Now, here's the important thing. I don't memorize my speeches. I internalize them. I know which anchor is coming next. If I ever tried to memorize my speech word for word, I'd be lost. You know, especially on a call like this, where sometimes people were unmuting themselves or coming in, popping in, things like that. I would be lost. What I do is memorize, I internalize it story for story, activity for activity. I know which activity is coming next, which story is coming next. I know how I'm going to go into it and how I'm going to come out of it. And I think when you can internalize with your anchors rather than memorize with your words, you're going to be much more engaging speaker, because then you can take advantage of these spontaneous moments. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Andre. You're welcome. Okay. I tell you what, I can't take anymore because we're going to be over time. So I'll just say this. You have some ideas on how to craft your message, how to deliver your message, how to sell your message. But I think it's important to understand one other thing that's going to help you become that speaker that you want to be. See, when I was and I'll close with this, when I was an events manager, one of my responsibilities was setting up the stage for the speaker, all the while wanting to be the speaker. Right? Can you imagine that? So I'd go into these little ballrooms and I'd tape down the power cords and I'd move the chairs around and I'd set up the lectern and I'd move more chairs, but it never failed. Whenever I would go into one of those empty ballrooms, I would walk up to the front, stand behind the lectern and look out and imagine that one day people would show up to see me. And I always said the same thing when I stood behind those lecterns. I said, today I move the chairs. Tomorrow I move the audience. Hopefully you've been moved today. Toastmaster Lee.
All right, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig, for this great sessions. I mean, like, I feel honored to be in a part of this session as well. I mean, Craig, if possible, if you allow, we have actually questions from our Portuguese channel. Is that okay for you to address?
Yeah, can you give them to me in English?
Yes, of course. I will read the questions. Of course, I will read the questions. So the question sounds like this: how did you manage to focus on public speaking as your work? And you don't think about having other jobs? That is the questions from the Portuguese channel.
Yeah, I made a great transition where I started working as an independent contractor with one of the seminar companies. Okay, there's different seminars companies out there like National Seminars Group, Fred Pryor Resources, Skill Path, all these different companies out there. So I wasn't an employee, but I was an independent contractor. And so when I left to go speak full time, 2 weeks out of every month, I was completely booked with them. Right. And then I could use the other 2 weeks to focus on building my own business. And I think one of the most important things to realize is you need a list of people who will follow you. I'm not talking about a social media list. I'm talking about an email list, right? Why do you think I sent you the 52 speaking tips? So that you can become on that list. And the reason I learned about this, the way I learned about this was one of my best friends in the world is Darren LaCroix, the 2001 world champion of public speaking. And one day, Darren used to always say to me back in the early 2000s, Craig, every time you speak, you should have a clipboard and you should take people's names and email addresses down if they want to stay in touch with you. I said, list schmist, I don't need a list. I don't need a list. I'm an artist. People will follow me. He said, I'm telling you, I'm building my list and you're not. I said, I don't need a list. I don't need a list. A couple years later, Darren called me and he said, Craig, I'm about to market a product that I just put together and I'm going to send it to my list. I said, list schmist, I don't need a list. He did it. 2 days later, he called me and he said, Craig, I just made $23,000. I said, Darren, what'd you say about that list again? You know, what'd you say about that? And so from that day on, I started building my list. And so 2 very important things to make that jump is you may want to start working with one of those seminar companies, although it's grueling work where you're on stage every day, all day, but you're going to definitely find your style and you're going to speak like you. And eventually you can use the other weeks to build your list. And that's what I did. So it was a pretty smooth transition, Lee.
All right, thank you, Craig. I read here that the comment like by Francis like Lee, you just met him, Craig Valentine, to break his rule, never finish content with Q&A.
Yeah,
Great,
I got more
Francis.
stories, but I think you understand the point. I think you understand the point.
Yeah, thank you so much. So allow me to do some recaps on your webinars. Like a couple of notes here, maybe I want to share with others as well. Like a couple of key points. It's like you must like have the phrases like fewer than 10 words, the phrase that determines what stays, no phrase, no stage, share with your stories with friends, and then speak to one, look to all, spaces and phases in between the lines, and then don't sell the product, but always sell the results. Sell the result first. Sell the
That's
result
right.
first. And this is the beauty one, that internalize and not memorize. That is really beautiful. That's really good. But thank you so much, Craig, for the sessions. For those, I would like to share this back my screen over here. Hold on a second. Yep. So yeah, can you guys see the screen? Yep. Okay. So we are now reaching at the feedback time. So for those who actually can see the screen, please kindly scan the QR code. This is the feedback for the event organizer so that we can actually improve ourselves to improve the next sessions of webinar or any workshops that we can actually cater for the whole Toastmasters Brazil. So please scan and give us the feedback. And the feedback is in English and Portuguese. So feel free to scan the feedback form so that you can access the feedback form through the link tree. While doing that, let's have a photo session if that's possible for everyone. Let's have a photo sessions. Everybody is encouraged to switch on their camera so that we can have a beautiful mosaic photos. Yes.
Well, I wish I had seen everybody during my speech. This would have been great.
Yeah.
I couldn't see anybody. I couldn't even see myself. I wish I could see everybody. Wow, look at the energy now.
Look at the beauty of the people over here. We even have Dagmara from Poland. Hi, Dagmara. Okay, are we all open already? Okay. So, Felipe, would you mind to do the screen captures, quick one?
Lee, could you allow me to turn on my camera?
Okay, hold on.
Can you allow my camera as well?